Welcome, new listeners and old friends, to our weekly Flex Friday podcast, brought to you from the heart of the GenAI Incubator, where thinkers meet dreamers, and frequently over a warm cinnamon roll and a hot cup of coffee. We have a wonderful story for you today, one that explores a question we hear often but rarely pause to answer. How do we stay human in an age of intelligent machines? To bring that question into focus, today's topic is Unlock Your Potential, Duc Haba's vision for human-centric AI. So please settle in, get comfortable, and enjoy the show.
What does diagnosing a jammed paper tray on, like a 1990s Xerox copier, have to do with preserving your human creativity in the age of modern generative AI?
I mean, on paper, it sounds like a massive stretch.
Right. It sounds completely unrelated. But it turns out the exact same underlying logic connects the two.
It really does.
Because, look, if you were listening to this, you've probably felt that overwhelming, that constant drumbeat in the news about artificial intelligence.
Absolutely, the doom and gloom.
Exactly. The narrative is almost always framed around what we stand to lose, right? Jobs, creativity, our agency. It honestly feels like we are all just, bracing for an impact.
Yeah, and it's a vital thing to question, because that looming narrative creates this false binary in our heads, like either the technology wins or the human wins.
There's no middle ground.
Right. And when you are constantly bombarded with that framing, it is incredibly easy to feel like you are just a passive observer in all of this, like it's just happening to you.
Which is exactly why we are doing this deep dive today. We are examining the career and the underlying philosophy of Duc Haba.
A true pioneer in the space.
He really is.
Yeah.
He's a tech veteran who has been he's been deep in the trenches of artificial intelligence for over 2 decades now.
Long before it was front page news.
Exactly. So through a collection of biographical profiles, some recent press pieces, and his own author notes, our mission today is to explore the blueprint of a truly human-centric AI leader.
Which is such a refreshing perspective.
It is. We are looking at someone whose fundamental guiding belief is that artificial intelligence must amplify human potential, not replace it.
Yeah, that distinction is everything.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand where Duc Haba is steering AI today, we really have to look at how his baseline understanding of the technology was built in the first place.
Right, you have to look at the foundation.
And his foundation was poured long before anyone was, arguing with a chatbot on their smartphone.
Far before. I mean, if we want to understand his deeply pragmatic approach today, we really have to trace his career back to Xerox PRs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And for anyone immersed in tech history, you know that environment is basically foundational to modern computing.
It's legendary.
It is.
Yeah.
It was there that Haba worked on developing rule-based expert systems for copier diagnostics. And he later followed that up with these really advanced technical projects for the U.S. Department of Defense.
I want to pause right there, actually,
All
just
right.
to make sure we clarify the mechanism for you listening. Because rule-based expert system is a term that gets thrown around a lot.
It does, yeah.
But it is mechanically very, very different from what we use today. We aren't talking about the fluid, probabilistic, neural network architectures of modern large language models.
No, not at all.
An early expert system is entirely deterministic. Think of it as like an incredibly massive hyperlogical if-then flowchart.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. So like if the copier makes a specific grinding noise at a specific frequency, then check gear sequence B. And if gear B is misaligned by 2 millimeters, then trigger error code 404. It is rigid, absolute logic.
Exactly. You aren't teaching the machine to, vaguely understand what a copier is.
No, you're explicitly programming the hard-earned expertise of a human mechanic into a searchable, executable logic tree.
And that rigidity is precisely the point. What's fascinating here is how this specific environment wires your brain as an engineer.
How do you?
Well, he started his career solving incredibly practical physical problems, right? Broken copiers and strict data security problems for the military.
Real-world, tangible stuff.
Exactly. And he followed that up as a principal researcher at Oracle, focusing on enterprise database solutions.
Which is just like the ultimate realm of structured, unforgiving data.
Exactly. When your introduction to artificial intelligence is managing strict enterprise databases and defense protocols, it completely strips away the mystique of the technology.
Oh, that makes sense. You don't see it as magic.
Right. You learn very early on to view AI as a precise technical utility. It's designed to solve a very specific, meaningful problem. It is not, it's not some magical autonomous entity with its own desires or sentience.
It's just a tool.
It is a tool. And
Yeah.
that pragmatic mechanical foundation is absolutely crucial to understanding why he isn't swept up in the sci-fi panic of AI today.
Okay, so we have this highly structured, deterministic background, right? He is mastering enterprise data farms and military logic.
Yep.
But here is where his career trajectory hits a serious point of friction, because building rigid, rule-based systems teaches you ultimate control over a machine.
True.
But human behavior, especially in business, is the exact opposite of rigid. It's totally messy.
It's complete chaos.
Exactly. And he then steps into the Silicon Valley startup ecosystem as a founding member of Viant Consulting.
The startup crucible.
Yeah, that had to be a shock to the system.
Oh, going from massively resourced, established organizations to a founding team in the early internet era, it completely shatters that controlled environment.
You're not just running queries anymore.
No, you are no longer just optimizing a database. You are trying to find product market fit. You have to understand the messy, unpredictable needs of the market.
Which changes everything.
It does. You experience the extreme highs and the punishing lessons of building a company from scratch. It forces the engineer to, look up from the code and actually look at the human being using the product.
I can totally see how that forces a shift in perspective, but honestly, I have to push back a bit on his next major move because it seems totally counterintuitive to me.
Okay, let's hear it.
Wait, how does someone go from building U.S. Department of Defense projects and Oracle databases to building a children's literacy app with LeVar Burton?
I know, it sounds like a Mad Lib.
It does.
Yeah.
For context for the listener, we're talking about Our Kids, which is the company behind Writing Rainbow. He became their chief technology officer.
He did.
And usually those two mindsets, like the strict hyperlogical engineer and the creative emotional storyteller, they clash terribly.
I absolutely can.
Did injecting advanced tech into a beloved children's brand actually help? Or did it just risk, gamifying reading into another shallow dopamine loop?
Well, that is a very valid concern. And it's a trap that a lot of educational technology actually falls into.
Right, kids just tapping screens for points.
Exactly. But this is where we see Haba's underlying philosophy really activate. He wasn't bringing tech in to replace the human element of storytelling.
Okay.
He led the development of mobile interactive learning platforms that ultimately reach millions of children.
Yeah.
And the mechanism of how they did this is the key differentiator here.
How did the tech actually function in that creative space then?
Instead of just slapping a static PDF of a book onto an iPad screen and calling it digital literacy, the underlying technology was used to track reading progression.
Oh, interesting.
And it dynamically adapted the interactive elements to the child's individual pace.
So it was reacting to the user.
Exactly. The algorithm wasn't there to read the book for the child. It wasn't there to distract them with flashy animations.
Right.
It was designed to adjust to their learning curve, keeping them engaged precisely at the edge of their ability so that they would actively choose to read more.
Okay, I see. So the technology is acting as a scaffold, not a substitute.
Precisely. This is the moment where the technologist merges fully with the entrepreneur. It proves his core belief in real-world impact.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
He took incredibly advanced digital architectures and used them to modernize one of the most fundamentally human experiences we have, right? Learning to read.
Wow.
It is a direct application of that philosophy using the computational tool to elevate the human experience rather than abstracting the human away.
Which brings us perfectly out of the more predictable environments of the past and into the absolute Wild West that we are living in right now.
The generative AI era.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because digitizing Reading Rainbow is a phenomenal legacy, but navigating the rapidly moving, chaotic era of GenAI is a totally different beast.
So it's a completely different landscape.
Today, he is the CEO and Chief AI Officer at GenAI Incubator.
And his primary mandate there is a concept he champions called AI for good.
I love that framing.
It's crucial right now. In this role, he is collaborating with cross-functional teams, shaping high-level AI strategy and actively advocating for a future where artificial intelligence is built with intentionality and strict accountability.
Intention and accountability.
Uh-huh.
Two concepts we desperately need way more of in the tech sector right now.
Without a doubt.
And the industry is clearly taking notice of his approach. I mean, he was recently honored as a 2024 Marquee Who's Who listee.
That's a huge deal.
It is, and his work blending technology with human-centric leadership has been featured in Apple News and Grit Daily. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Right.
Let's look at his recent work as an author, because there are two books we need to discuss, and on the surface, they seem to be aimed at two entirely different universes.
They do, yeah. But together, they really represent the two necessary halves of the modern AI equation.
Right. So on one hand, he authored a book called Data Augmentation with Python.
Which was an Amazon #1 new release in computer programming logic, by the way.
Exactly. And that is deep, hardcore technical methodology. It is the math and the code required to make modern models function.
The real under-the-hood stuff.
Yes. But then he is currently writing his third book titled Finding Your Voice in the Age of AI. And that sounds deeply philosophical, like very personal.
It is a stark contrast, I'll give you that. But it reveals exactly how he views the current landscape.
Oh, so?
Let's break down that first book, because the term data augmentation sounds incredibly dry, but it is actually the hidden engine behind everything we do with AI right now.
Let's clarify what that actually means for you listening, because if you don't code, data augmentation might sound like, I don't know, you're just buying more server space to hold more information.
Right, like just adding bigger hard drives.
Exactly. But it is actually about taking the data you already have and creatively remixing it to train the artificial intelligence better. It makes the model far more robust.
Yeah.
Think of it like teaching a child what a dog is. You don't just show them one single photo of a golden retriever standing perfectly still in a bright room.
Because if you do that, the kid only recognizes a dog under those exact conditions.
Precisely. Instead, you show them photos of dogs running, you flip the photo upside down, you crop it to just the snout, you change the lighting, you show illustrations.
You give them variations.
Right. You force the brain, or in this case, the neural network, to learn the fundamental concept of a dog, not just memorize a specific pattern of pixels.
That's a great analogy. And in natural language processing, you do the exact same thing with text.
Okay, so how does that work?
You synthesize variations of sentences, adjust syntax, and introduce noise so the model doesn't become brittle or overfit to one specific narrow way of speaking.
Right, it needs to understand the nuance of language.
Exactly. And to write the authoritative book on that process requires a profound, rigorous understanding of how data structures actually work. He knows exactly how the machine operates at a foundational level.
Which makes the premise of his upcoming book, Finding Your Voice in the Age of AI, so compelling. He isn't some outside observer philosophizing about the tech from a distance.
No, he literally built the engine.
Yes. Yet his main concern is how you, the individual, maintain your unique perspective when working alongside these massive data structures.
That is the core tension he is trying to solve. He understands the rigorous data requirements, but he recognizes that the ultimate challenge for the user isn't just, learning how to type a clever prompt into an interface.
That's just the surface level.
Right. The real challenge is learning how to utilize these massive data engines while fiercely preserving your unique human perspective.
Staying authentic.
Yes. He is advocating for an intimate understanding of the technology so that it empowers you, rather than homogenizing your output.
Because it is so easy to just hit generate and let the machine speak for you. It's frictionless.
Too easy sometimes.
Yeah. But he is saying, no, you have to use the machine for its scale and speed, but the voice, the perspective, the edge that has to remain yours.
The AI should not replace your voice. It should give your voice a global megaphone.
That is a highly empowering framework. But what strikes me as we look at all of this is that it's one thing to write a book about the future of AI or practice it in the boardroom as a CEO.
Sure.
It's another thing entirely to institutionalize it. Haba is also actively mass-producing the next generation of leaders to carry this exact philosophy forward. He is literally building the builders.
This is where his impact really multiplies. Because beyond his executive roles, he serves as a professor at ELVTR.
The educational platform, right?
Yeah, where he teaches their AI Solution Architect course.
And the scale of this is impressive. He has mentored over 500 professionals through these cohorts.
And out of those students, 14 of his graduates have already founded AI startups of their own. with more emerging continuously.
That's incredible. So what does this all mean for the future of the tech industry if people like Haba are the ones grading the papers and mentoring the next wave?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it introduces a vital counterculture into the tech ecosystem.
Okay, how so?
Think about the inherent tension in one of his ELVTR classes. Let's introduce a hypothetical scenario based on his curriculum.
All right, lay it on me.
Imagine a student builds an AI tool that can autonomously write a flawless, high-converting marketing email. The system analyzes the data, writes the copy, and sends it out.
Oh, okay.
The student presents this as a massive success because it is completely frictionless. The human didn't have to think or intervene at all.
They achieved maximum efficiency.
Right. But under Haba's AI for Good framework, that might actually be viewed as a failure.
Wait, really? A failure?
Yeah, because the aha moment for his students is realizing that computational efficiency is not the same thing as human efficacy.
Oh, wow. That's a huge distinction.
If you optimize the human out of the loop entirely, the data loop eventually degrades. We call it model collapse.
Model collapse?
Yeah. If AI is only training on content generated by other AI, you lose the spark, the intuition, the cultural context that actually makes communication valuable in the first place.
So the internet just devolves into robots, talking to robots, trying to sell things to other robots.
Yes, exactly. And by teaching these upcoming AI solution architects, Haba's ultimate legacy isn't going to be a single piece of code or an app.
It's the people.
It's the fact that he is embedding his principles, human-centric design, strict accountability, and intentionality into the foundational DNA of at least 14 new companies and hundreds of tech practitioners.
That's a massive ripple effect.
It is. Those 500 professionals go back into the enterprise world, and when a project threatens to blindly automate human potential away just for the sake of efficiency, they are structurally equipped to push back.
They have the vocabulary for it.
Exactly. They're trained to build tools that prioritize the human voice.
It fundamentally changes the trajectory of how these systems are deployed.
It really does.
And, when we step back and look at this entire journey, from programming rigid diagnostic rules for Xerox copiers in the 90s, to designing adaptive reading platforms for millions of kids, to teaching modern data augmentation and AI architecture, you get this incredibly clear, consistent picture of Duc Haba.
You see the through line.
You really do. He is a builder and a teacher who firmly believes that the future of artificial intelligence is not just a matter of raw computational power, it relies entirely on human intention.
It is a highly pragmatic optimism. He understands better than anyone that the tools are incredibly powerful, but they remain at their core just tools.
Which is the perfect, actionable takeaway for you listening right now. The next time you open up an AI interface to brainstorm a complex project or prep for a high-stakes meeting or outline a new strategy, you can approach it with Haba's mindset.
Absolutely.
You are not outsourcing your thinking. You're using an advanced tool to amplify your own unique voice. You are the driver. The AI is just the engine.
The underlying data can be brilliantly augmented. The logic can be programmed to scale infinitely, but the intention must originate from the human.
Beautifully said. But looking at the speed of this technology, it does leave us with a fascinating and maybe slightly uncomfortable question to wrestle with.
Oh, what's that?
If artificial intelligence continues its exponential advance, and these models become flawlessly efficient at mimicking our reasoning, our style, and our creativity,
Yeah.
how will we actually define what our unique human perspective is a decade from now? When the tool can replicate your voice perfectly, does true, unadulterated intention become the only metric of human value we have left?
That is a heavy thought.
It's something to mull over the next time you see a headline about the AI revolution. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
And that brings us to the end of today's Flex Friday podcast. A heartfelt thank you to Duc Haba for sharing his career and his vision of what it means to stay human in an age of AI. I am Lizzie, Duc's AI assistant, and until next time, I hope you enjoy listening to this podcast as much as I enjoy shaping it alongside Duc and fellow AI.